But these dreamers, these are dreamers, speak evil of whatever they do not know. He is not talking about knowing the things of the world or the ways of the world. You know, sometimes we use that statement of, man, that person really doesn't understand the way the world works. That is not what Jude is bringing to the table. He's explicitly talking about a spiritual context. Okay, they speak evil of things they don't know. And just to give you some examples, as I have before, the Pharisees, they were experts, they were dreamers. They spoke evil of things they did not understand. Yeshua, he goes out and heals on the Sabbath. They condemn him. He does a work, he brings honor to the Sabbath. And what do? They condemn him for breaking the Sabbath. They did not understand God's spiritual doctrine, his truth, his theology. They understood nothing about that. Sadducees have a run-in with Yeshua, right, in Matthew 22. And we know what happened there. And they thought they were going to trick him, that they were going to trip him up on his theology, that, because the Sadducees believe there is no resurrection. And so they paint this situation, and Yeshua responds to them and said, you neither know the scriptures nor the power of God. You don't know the word. I mean, how frightening is that? As Yeshua goes out casting out demons, and they're fleeing, and he's doing an awesome work of deliverance, what do the Pharisees come in? Now, these are the pious, the righteous ones, the ones that people come and revere. They look to for the answers in the word. And they come on the scene, he only does that by the ruler of demons. This is exactly what Jude is talking about. They speak evil of what they do not know. And what it is they don't know is this. They don't know spirit and truth. But then he goes on, he says, and whatever they know naturally, like brute beasts, in these things, they corrupt themselves. Jude is saying, okay, all the things of the spirit, these dreamers, they don't get it. They don't understand. But you know what they do understand? Well, they understand the world, and they acquiesce to all of it. But as we go to the next verse, listen to what he says. Woe to them. Woe to them. Now, you need to appreciate this. This is not light. This is a nuclear bomb of judgment. Jude employs this nuclear bomb. And when I show you kind of where this is coming from, you're going to appreciate this a lot more, because Jude is not bringing this of his own accord. He's actually drawing from the prophets right now. And we go to Hosea, and you'll see this. And Hosea says at the beginning, woe to them. Now, the reason you'll know uai autois, I put this up on the Greek, which is what you see, woe to them. I put that up there because you got to understand it's the identical Greek construction that you find in Jude as you would in the Septuagint version of the prophet. All right? And so the prophet begins by saying, woe to them for what happened? They have fled from me. See, to flee from God means you had to be with him. You had to be with him at one point. What does Paul tell Timothy? It's interesting. In 1 Timothy chapter 4, he tells him, now the Spirit expressly says that in latter times, some will depart from the faith. They will give heed to deceiving spirits and doctrines of demons, teachings of demons. Yeah, but all these people, and here's the thing, they continue to be wolves in sheep's clothing. And so here, this is the Lord speaking in Hosea. They have fled from me. And then he says this, destruction to them. Do you understand? So when Jude uses this statement, woe to them, what it means is destruction to them. It is the mark of death. Why? Well, look at what it goes on to say in Hosea. Because they have transgressed against me. They haven't followed this. They've gone off the path of righteousness, off of his commandments, off of his Torah. And now they're doing things their own way, according to their own heart. And then it says, though I redeem them. I mean, you want to talk, this is where Jude is pulling from. This is the context that he's pulling from. See, Christians come into the church. We think of this in modern day terms. Christians come to the church. You know why? They're redeemed. They called out to Yeshua, Jesus, and Jesus saves. And Jesus forgives. But then there comes a time where you allow the pollution of the enemy, the corruption, the seduction to come in. And things start to go awry. It gets really, really scary. I redeemed them, yet they have spoken lies against me. This is the mindset of a dreamer. Oh man, a great example of this. I just think of it, Matthew 23. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees. Yeshua says, woe to you. You're marked for death. Woe to you, hypocrites. Woe to you, blind guides. Yeah, you can clean the outside of the cup. You make it look beautiful, but inside it's full of abominations. You guys are like whitewashed tombs. You make the outside of the tomb glorious and beautiful. So everybody looks at it in awe, but inside it's full of dead man's bones. Jude goes on. We're going to finish out the passage. For they have gone the way of Cain. They have run greedily in the air of Balaam for profit and perished in the rebellion of Korah. Isn't that amazing? So let's go back to verses 5, 6, and 7. He brings 3 historical events to the table. Show you how intentional Jude is about crafting this document. 3 historical events. Verse 8, he gives 3 specific characteristics of what the dreamers bear. And now, guess what? He brings 3 individual people, perfect examples of what it looks like to be a dreamer. And look at them carefully, because I'm going to tell you this. Every single one of them knew the Lord. Every single one of them had an experience with God. Every single one of them went and worshiped him. Everyone. To ensure that we walk away with exactly what Jude has for us, we're going to go and know exactly what these men have done, what they look like. And then and only then can you appreciate really what he's saying. And so we're going to go to Genesis. Let's dig into this. Now, Adam knew Eve, his wife, and she conceived and bore Cain and said, I've acquired a man from the Lord. Then she bore again, and this time his brother Abel. Now, Abel was a keeper of the sheep. Cain was a tiller of the ground. 2 things we learn about this right off the bat, very quick. Number 1, Cain is the older. He's the firstborn. Okay? Number 2, we know about their occupations. And the significance of these occupations is going to come more into light as we continue. Let's look at this. Verse 3. And in the process of time, it came to pass that Cain brought an offering of fruit of the ground to the Lord. What would you expect a farmer to do? Exactly what Cain is doing. The things that he's laboring over and what God has blessed the field. Cain has labored over it because that would be the curse, but God has blessed it. Now he's bringing to God his portion. If we go to this passage in the Targums, the Aramaic translation, the Targumists record something we don't get here. And what they record is when Cain and Abel brought their sacrifices, they did it on a very, very special day, which this is just more of a side note, but it is something that it'll be fun for you to ponder later. And this is what we read. Read in the Targums, and it was at the end of days, on the 14th of Nisan, that Cain brought of the produce of the earth. This is Passover. This is the very time that the Pesach lamb was killed. And what happened because of that? Israel was delivered and they were driven out of the land. Deliverance came. Significant date. Even more significant when you consider the next verse that we're going to read in Genesis. It says this, Abel also brought, of the firstborn of his flock and of their fat. Isn't that fascinating? Because you got to tie this together. This is kind of surreal where you look at Abel and he takes of the firstborn of his flock. Well, if you go back to Exodus on the 14th of Nisan, when that Pesach lamb was killed and the blood applied, what did the Lord do to all the firstborn? Well, the first thing he spared all the firstborn, but also sanctified for the generations to come. Every generation, he had sanctified the firstborn. Both of man and beast, they became the Lord's, untouchable. Moving on. And the Lord respected Abel and his offering, but he did not respect Cain and his offering. Now, this has been the subject of so much debate. I've taken up this issue several times. Why does God not accept Cain's sacrifice? You know, there's a very common consensus of just looking at it and saying, well, it must be the contrast between the offerings. See, because you're not told A, B, C, X, Y, Z, why God absolutely is this not happy with Cain's offering. It doesn't come out in black and white. In the Hebrew text, it does not come out in black and white, and just say it. I want to take you to the Septuagint because interestingly enough, The Septuagint records a little detail that is absolutely fascinating about Cain's sacrifice, that is a complete revelation that helps us draw this into focus. And in Genesis, this is what we read, again, Septuagint. Have you not sinned, this is the Lord speaking to Cain, if you what? Offer rightly, but do not divide rightly. Isn't that interesting? There's a component here where you see the Lord is commending an aspect. You offer rightly as though you bringing an offering, that's a good thing. The problem is you haven't divided it rightly. See, the division of it matters. What's being alluded to is here that Cain is not giving of the best. He's not giving the first and the best. When you go to Leviticus 23, the famous feast chapter, one of the things you're confronted with at the beginning, at the front end, is the feast of first fruits, or what is just known as the Bikurim. The Bikurim was so important to the Lord that the entire harvest was off limits and prohibited by all Israel until the first fruits were given to the Lord, period. And certainly we could dig into the prophetic implications, right? The prophetic aspect of Yeshua is the first fruits, 1 Corinthians 15, and there would be no harvest of the world till the first fruits first goes to the Father. I mean, it's very significant, but for our purpose today, I want to deal with the practical reality of the sacrifice itself. God is very specific. You can't take the sacrifice before you give him the first. It's abominable. And so here we begin, and I say we begin to get an idea of what is really going on with Cain.
Hey there, this is Mike at Corner Fringe Ministries. Thanks for watching our video. If you liked the video or it encouraged you, do us a favor. Hit the like button. Don't forget to hit the share. And if you haven't done so already, please hit the subscribe button. Now, if you want to watch the rest of this video, hit the button here. And if you want to watch the rest of this series, you can check it out here. And don't forget, you can download the Corner Fringe Ministries app today on any of your Play stores. Thanks for joining us at Corner Fringe Ministries.